Instead of Mike Tyson, Jake Paul will be fighting the bare knuckle champion, the king of violence, Mike Perry, this Saturday. I'm going to go through, give you a breakdown and my official prediction for the fight. And I got to say, this one is a little bit tough because there's so many variables that you got to take into account. The weight, the experience of both guys and everything that Mike Perry has done in combat sports. He's been around everywhere. So we're going to take a look at it. I'll give you some pros and cons about each fighter. And then I will give you my official pick and prediction. Before we do that, I want to mention that there's a free $10,000 challenge on the Better Picks app regarding this fight, where you basically just go and pick more or less on specific categories, such as like knockdowns. So you can pick more if you think Jake Paul is going to get a knockout, or less if he doesn't. There's 8 of them. If you pick all 8 correct, you're going to win a share of $10,000. It's a free entry on the Better Picks app. Use my code HAJAV when you sign up. You'll get a deposit bonus up to $250. I'll put that link down in the description below. And if you're not new to the channel, we already cook on that app. But that's just a nice little free challenge. Throw it in there. Maybe win some big money. Let's get into the breakdown, man. 8-round fight, 3 minutes each. So Jake went 10 rounds with Nate Diaz, made it to a decision, won that decision, and here he's got 2 less rounds. Now, Mike Perry is used to fighting in bare knuckle boxing where the rounds are 2 minutes and they only do 5 rounds. So that's only 10 possible minutes of fight time. That's why in BKFC, it's such a sprint. You just see those guys throwing hands so fast and really going for it because it's a sprint. It's not a marathon. Boxing is a marathon. I mean, 8 rounds is on the lower end. A lot of people will do 10, and then championships are 12 rounds. So 8 rounds of 3 minutes each, that's going to total 24 total possible minutes of fight time, which is more than double that what Mike Perry's been used to fighting in bare knuckles. So we'll see how he adjusts there. It is at 200 pounds, and Jake was training for a heavyweight fight with Mike Tyson, so he was a bit bigger, and then they had to start cutting down his calories because Mike Perry, he's going to have to go up in weight. Mike Perry's last fight was at 185. That was the biggest that Mike Perry has ever weighed in at. That was against Thiago Alves in bare knuckle. And he's going to have to weigh in he can weigh in under 200, but the fight weigh-in weight is at 200 pounds. And I think Jake Paul was probably going to be hurting a little bit to get to 200 pounds because he was looking pretty big. He was pushing like 225, 230. And he's got to get down to 200. And that's kind of his normal weight class, but then he was bulking up for the Tyson fight. So we'll see how he looks at weigh-ins tomorrow. But it is at 200 pounds, and I would expect Jake Paul to be the bigger guy. And then, of course, this fight will be in Tampa, Florida. Mike Perry trains in Orlando, Florida, so it's right near his backyard. And then Jake has actually already fought at the same arena in Tampa where he knocked out Tyron Woodley. Lives in Puerto Rico, so it's really not that far for him. So both a good spot for both guys. We'll say that. Tail of the tape. So Jake's 9-1 in boxing. His only loss is to Tommy Fury. And it's funny just because that fight was over in Saudi Arabia. And every time he's fought in the U.S., he's won. Anytime he's left the U.S., except for the fight in Puerto Rico, he lost. Weird. But that is the only true boxer, I guess, that he faced before, his last couple easy pickup wins against these guys that nobody knows. But this is a good fight, man. I mean, I love the Mike Perry-Jake Paul matchup. Mike Perry does have some boxing experience. I mean, he's 0-1. He got knocked out in 2014 in the 4th round of a 4-round bout. He got knocked out by a boxer who was 6-1 at the time and then really went on to not really do much in boxing. And then he fought Michael Seals in the Triad Combat, which is basically just a triangular boxing ring, and you had turtleback gloves, so the ones where they kind of curl over your fingers so you can't eye poke, but they're not full boxing gloves. I think they're like 6 or 8 ounces, something like that. And, you know, he won that fight. He won that fight by split decision. He did get dropped in the fourth round, but he was just marching him down the entire time, really just trying to pressure him, not allowing him to breathe, because he was coming off of getting cut by the UFC. He was an MMA fighter. He was going up against a boxer. He was just really trying to pressure, and stay in his face and land big shots. He got clipped once in the process of doing that, but he still ended up winning by split decision against, I think he was 39 at the time, Michael Seals, but Seals was a good boxer. I think he was like 28-3 in boxing, so it's a good win. 5'10" for Mike Perry, 6'1" for Jake Paul. Like I said, I think Jake's going to be the bigger guy for sure. 5-inch reach advantage for Jake, and he is the younger guy, about 5 years younger, and he is a bigger favorite than minus 250. I think he's pushing close to minus 500 at this point. And I think that's a little bit crazy, man. I mean, a lot of people are liking the Mike Perry side, and I can't blame him, man, because he's an absolute dog. Let's get into the pros and cons. For Jake Paul, this dude's got a big right hand, and he's going to hit you with the overhand, what he hit Tyron Woodley with. He hit Ben Askren with it, and then he's also got a really nice uppercut that he's been using a lot more often. I mean, he hit Andre August with that, knocked him out with that. He's landed it multiple times throughout many of his fights against Nate Diaz. Specifically when guys cover up or start to duck their head, he'll throw that uppercut right in there, and it lands beautifully. And then he's got a really nice improved left hook that he knocked down Nate Diaz with, that he has looked really sharp with in his last couple fights against the guys that nobody knows. But it looks good. It looks good. I mean, he looks like he's polishing up to be a really solid boxer. The one thing that I think that he could improve is his jab, just being more active with his lead hand, and then being a little bit more physical. And I think he could do that here against Mike, because Mike's going to be physical. He's going to want to come forward, and he's got to match that. I think Jake's got to be more physical in a lot of his fights, like especially against Nate. Like Nate was a smaller dude, and I think he could just, if he fights off his back foot a lot here against Mike, he might start to get tired. And if he's not able to pick his shots, like Mike is going to be able to find some success, just push it forward. So if he can improve his jab in this fight, really stick it out there every time Mike comes in close, stick the jab out there, and then be physical. Don't be the one that's on your back foot the entire fight, and get Mike to actually start taking some steps back. I think that he could improve that part of his game, and we'll see if he does here, because I think he will need to do that throughout the fight to be successful. Mike Perry. This dude's extremely tough. As far as boxing goes, I mean, he's got heavy hooks. He's going to march you down. He's going to throw a left jab out there, and then just try to overhand right, left hook, repeat, and then just kind of keep going. I mean, he's a guy that beats you off to being tough, having a great motor and good cardio. And then his downfalls are that he's extremely hittable. I mean, if you're extremely tough, you're probably going to be extremely hittable as well. He is very, very hittable. We see it in a lot of his fights where he just takes a beating, especially in bare knuckle. He'll take a beating to start out, or maybe he'll get dropped or he'll get rocked early in round one, and then he just gets bloodied up, and it's like it motivates him more. He just keeps coming forward, and eventually those guys wilt. One thing as far as, boxing technicalities, the guy, he walks you forward, or walks you down, but he stands really upright. Like, I don't know if just because he's fighting, like a Luke Rockhold who's 6'2", 6'3", or whatever, and he wants to be a little bit taller or what, but he just stands upright. And at times where he'll like land a really good jab on him, he'll almost like fall on the heels of his feet, like where he's almost going to fall over. But it's just because he stands upright. Like, I would love to see him have like a little bit of a bend in the knee and like get some more movement in there. Because when you're standing upright, it's hard to move your head. It's hard to move your body. And it's hard to really unload with punches. If he didn't stand upright, I think he could actually punch a lot harder. But he doesn't really care sometimes. He just takes it in the face and keeps moving. Yeah, he's got a little head movement. It's pretty much rolls into standing upright. It's usually on the center line. He'll be able to duck under some hooks here and there, but it's his jab is he's going to eat those jabs and he's going to eat those right hands, and he's just going to look to try to take them better than you can because he's going to throw them back. So that's Mike Perry in a nutshell right there. Let's get into the prediction, man. So we laid out all the factors, all the pros and cons of each fighter, and let's get into the prediction. Started off, I think Jake lands some big shots in round one. We see it in a lot of his fights, whether he's getting a first round knockout against those guys that nobody knows, or just in a lot of his fights, the Ben Askren fight, the Nate Diaz fight, he was landing some really big shots on Nate Diaz in their fight in round one, almost to the point where I thought he was going to finish him in round one. And Mike Perry is generally a slow starter, unless he's a massive favorite. Whenever he fights somebody good, you look at the Eddie Alvarez fight, you look at the Luke Rockhold fight, even the MVP fight, he gets hit early and he usually gets stunned very early, and then it wakes him up to the point where he starts fighting. He got hurt. He's been hurt really bad in a lot of these first round of his fights. I think Jake's going to land some big shots. I'm hoping he doesn't put him away early in round one because I'm going to the fight, so I don't really want it to be a first round knockout. I kind of want it to be, I want to see it for a little bit. I want Mike to at least have a chance to get into the fight, be a dog fight type of thing. But I think Jake is going to land some big shots in round one. But I don't think he gets him out of there because, in BKFC, you got the knockdown rule. And Mike's never been knocked out in BKFC. And then in boxing, of course, you got the knockdown, 10-second timer to recover. And then you get back in there and you do your thing. After that, I think Mike Perry's going to settle in and he's going to start pressuring Jake. And from what I've seen, everything with Jake is he knows he's the better boxer. And I do believe he is the better boxer here, just pure boxing. He knows his movement has to be on point in this one, just because Mike loves to pressure. And if your footwork is not right and you're just constantly backing up and you're not circling out, then it's going to be a long night. I think Mike's going to start to settle in, start to pressure. Jake's going to move around, circle around to the center. And I think Mike's going to start turning it on a little bit, probably landing more volume in rounds 2, 3, 4. And then we get to rounds 4 through 6, and I think that's where Jake lands a knockdown that could put out Mike Perry, but I think Mike's just going to get so confident moving forward after those first two, after he settles in and through rounds 2, 3, 4, he's just going to start to get a little bit overconfident. He's going to start to think that he's marching this dude down, and maybe, I think they're probably going to be close rounds and not like he's running away with it. But I think he's going to get a little bit confident, and I think Jake's going to land either a nice right hand or a big left hook because Mike is just so hittable, and he's there to be hit. I think eventually Jake's going to land a knockdown, and maybe it comes earlier than this, but I think rounds 4 through 6, he's super live for a knockdown and maybe a knockout. But I can't go with that. I think it goes to a decision. With an 8-round fight, I don't think it's anything crazy for this fight to go to a decision. Because Mike's super tough. Jake is tough too. He hasn't quite had to go through any type of the adversity that Mike Perry has inside the octagon. But I think he's just a better boxer. I don't think it's like BKFC where you can just wilt a guy that easily because you're not getting hit with bare knuckles. You're getting hit with the big gloves, and it's a bigger ring. It's a longer amount of time. I think he should be able to make it to a decision. I think it goes to a decision, and I think Jake wins. Probably a close one, maybe by split decision. So that's my prediction. I could honestly see this being a draw too. Low-key, I think Mike's going to be having some success just with this pressure and maybe winning on volume. But Jake's still going to be landing some pretty big shots. Mike's going to be taking them. Maybe he doesn't look great taking them, and that's why Jake gets the win. By decision. But I think the fight probably goes to a decision, and I think Jake gets his hand raised. So appreciate you for watching. I'll be there in attendance. If you're there, give me a shout. I'll say what's up. But that's my prediction, man. We'll see. Saturday night should be fun. And good luck to y'all if you're going to bet on it. I know Jake is a massive favorite, which is always tough. So you basically got to choose decision or knockout if you like the Jake side, because there's no way you're taking minus 500. And I guess I got to go with decision, man. It is the plus money out of the two. I think it makes sense. So I'll take Jake by decision. Good luck. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Till next time, Hey Jab Picks.